Hello, my name is Adam Long and I'm a board director with the National LGBT Federation and I'm joined by the Taoiseach Leo Varadkar for our Pride Series interviews where we discuss, I suppose, all the major legislative priorities for the community and Pride Month is an appropriate moment to do that. So Taoiseach, can I welcome you to our series and wish you a happy Pride.
Thank you, and you're very welcome to Government Buildings.
Thank you very much.
Happy Pride.
Thank you very much. I suppose another issue, again, which would be very kind of topical in terms of the legislative agenda would be a ban on the really awful and abusive practice of so-called conversion therapy. And I spoke to your colleague, actually, both your ministerial and your constituency colleague, Minister Roderick O'Gorman, and he kind of gave an update that he's hoping to have that ban in place in early 2024. But again, I think we can look to other jurisdictions to see good practice and bad practice there. I think for the community and I would be on the steering group along with others, the coalition to ban conversion practices. And really there's kind of three key pillars to that, Taoiseach. One is that it's fully LGBT plus inclusive, so we don't see kind of what's playing out in Britain at the moment, leaving the trans community behind. So reassurance around that.
We saw what happened in Britain, and that's not what's going to happen here. I remember them having to cancel their LGBT conference over that. They were going to have a big event. I was invited to attend it and then ended up cancelling it because they I think fell into that trap of allowing of somehow saying that there is such a thing as trans conversion therapy and that it's acceptable. So that's not going to be the space that this bill is in. It'll cover the trans community as well. And was in touch with Mr. Gorman's people just today, just to get an update on where he is on it. So as is always the case with the law, you have to get it right, because if there are loopholes in a law, it'll fall apart in court under prosecution and has to be compliant with lots of other things, conventions and constitution and so on. So it did take a big bit of work, and you have to then define what conversion therapy is and isn't, for example. But he intends to bring the heads of the bill, which is like the outline of the bill, to Cabinet within weeks, certainly before the summer break, and then have the legislation in the Dáil and Shannon and on the statute books in 2024. So hopefully by the time we Pride next year, it'll be done. It'll be
in place. And that that's so important, because although it's not thankfully very prevalent in Ireland, but the research that Minister O'Gorman's department commissioned that it is happening, perhaps at a small scale, but I think even one case of that, the United Nations, for example, they call it a form of torture. And even the UN Rapporteur for Religious Freedom, said that people have a right to religious practice, but they don't have a right to harm others through that. So he's been very clear and explicit on that. Just, I suppose, perhaps a concern or something that that's important around the consent issue, because I know that survivors of this abhorrent practice have said that on paper they would have kind of quote unquote consented, but really would have been under duress, and also you can't really consent to what's inherently abusive. And I know that's something that has to be worked through in the bill, because obviously I suppose our legal, our legal situation would be not entirely the same as other, because every other country that's gone down this route now, except Britain, has had that full ban, no opt-outs or anything like that. Would that be important to you? I suppose.
Like, to be honest, that's something we're gonna have to explore. Again, any consent to any kind of so-called treatment or procedure or therapy has to be informed consent. But if it's not a recognised treatment or therapy or procedure, and it's not, then I'm not sure consent even arises. But that is the kind of thing we'll have to tease out. As we write legislation and try to get it correct.
Yes, of course. We certainly hope that can be resolved, because again, I think people like Jane O'San and somebody on our board actually, who was also a victim of conversion practices, and they're so kind of clear about that consent for them is just a misnomer. And that's the lived experience of people who have undergone that. So again, we'll watch this space with interest.
I know you know this area well, so you'll be familiar with the Brown case and a few others. There are things you can't consent to.
Absolutely. So it will be great to have that, I suppose. And actually, only recently, I think Iceland and what was the other country? Cyprus, just in the last few weeks, are the latest country. So there is definitely a movement, a direction of travel, I think. And it would be great to see Ireland, obviously, kind of as part of that.